Check, check, check. All right. Do I sound good? I just royally just bungled that whole thing. And it wouldn't be a start if it wasn't me messing up our open. And in 3, 2. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our three favorite things, talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. I am your host, Ethan, and Mitch is back with us yet again, as always. Welcome back, Mitch.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm coming at you from Dallas again, from my apartment, so I apologize if you have any dogs or roommates in the background.
Yep, so Mitch is in Dallas today. We are doing a little reactions pod. It is overreaction season. We are going to be talking all sorts of just gut things, just a lot of overreactions to the first week or so of the NBA season.
Yeah, we are officially in overreaction season. The first week of basketball always starts off with a bunch of, the narratives, people trying to form the narratives and whatnot, and they're always overreacting to whatever is happening, good or bad. So I'm going to give you my overreaction for every single team in the West on this podcast.
Yep, we are starting with the Western Conference. We'll do the Eastern Conference maybe a little bit later, but we're just going to overreact, and then we're going to have a little take that'll bring them back down to earth a little bit. Something that overreaction, and then okay, let's do a little bit of a real take here.
Yeah, and then we'll bring it back down to the real world as to what's actually happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we're drinking today, Mitch.
Let's do it. All right, today we are drinking Proper 12, and I got kind of a cute little bottle today. I thought that was nice. So Proper 12, if you don't know the story behind it, it is a very recent new whiskey. Just came out in, I believe it was 2018, and it was created by none other than the notorious MMA Conor McGregor. This is Conor McGregor's Irish whiskey that he created. It became super popular immediately. A big part of that is because the main creator of Bushmills whiskey, which comes out of Ireland, and it's kind of known to be like the second or third most famous Irish whiskey, is his main distiller. And another real neat thing that I think is kind of cool what they're doing is that they have a one for all initiative where, like in the US, for every $5, or it's like $20 or whatever if you want to get the bottle. But for every, they use $5 from every bottle and they put it into emergency service workers and first responders. And so I think it's kind of a cool little thing that Conor's got going on. I've always loved Conor, watching him in his MMA fights and watching him box Floyd Mayweather and stuff. And so I wanted to give his whiskey a little shout out.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a good whiskey. It's a tasty whiskey. It's something that every time I hear it in an Irish accent. It's Proper 12. It's you can't, you can't not say it in an Irish accent. Who doesn't love Conor McGregor? I mean, actually, a lot of people don't love Conor McGregor, but everyone knows who he is. That's why the whiskey's popular, and it's a good, solid whiskey.
Yes, it's a very solid whiskey, and we'll sip on it a little bit and maybe give you some thoughts on it later.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's get into these overreactions. We're gonna just start. I'm gonna throw a team at you, and you're gonna just tell me your reaction of it. All right.
Perfect. Hit me. Right. Who's the first team?
Right. So the first team we're going to go with is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Interesting start to the year. Interesting team. A team that blew it up, obviously. Mitch, what you got?
All right. So the Thunder. Here is my overreaction as to what has happened so far in this season. The overreaction is Shai Alexander is an absolute killer star, can be a number one star on a team. You need to consider him to be an all-star. It maybe this year, but definitely in years going forward. Shai Alexander is 100% a player that you can build an entire team around. That is my overreaction because I don't know if Shai actually is a guy that you can totally build a team around, but he's killing it right now. The Thunder have not looked nearly as bad as what you kind of thought that they were going into the season, where we just assumed, just like last season, we assumed that they were going to tank.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that got rid of most of their starting five, got rid of all their vets. If you had even a smidge of value the Thunder flipped you this year. No one was
Hmm.
safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so they did lose tonight, and tonight was they played against the Magic, who, for those of you who don't know, the Magic are 4-0 right now. But they played against the Magic, and Shea Gilgeous put up a stat line of, let's see, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists on 8 of 10 shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid is awesome. He's super efficient, and he's already got a game winner this year.
Yeah, he is the definition of efficiency. Just played super well all year. He is averaging 23 points a game. He's averaging 8 dimes, which is pretty impressive, and then 5 boards while only turning or while doing a half a steal and a block a game.
Yeah. So it's only been 3 games. They're 1-2. The one win did have to come off of a Shea Gilgis Alexander game-winning shot, which is awesome. And so my overreaction, I wanted to focus more on the star player, who I think is good. I think that he's going to be a really good player, but right now, if you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, you're like, this is the guy. This is the guy that we can put a whole team around, and I'm just not there yet with him.
No, it definitely is an overreaction. We'll see how he plays this year. I will say this year his efficiency has definitely dipped. He's only shooting 41% from the field and abysmal 15% from three on 6.5 attempts a
Oof.
game, which is tough. He's shooting the ball a ton, 20.5 attempts a game, only making 8.5. So the efficiency is going to have to go up, but the volume's there. Mitch, what brings this team back down to earth a little bit?
So the thing that's going to bring this team really back down to earth is their youth. So they have got what I count as 5 to 6 rotation players that they put out there on a nightly basis that is either in their first or second year in the league. And then the guys that you do have that are like your vets are pretty much you got Al Horford, George Hill, and Trevor Ariza, and that's it. Like, you got a couple of sturdy little vets there and a lot of youth, and I just don't know how I feel about the Thunder as a whole. So Shea Gilgeous is gonna be more ineffective, even though he is a player that I think is like efficiency, like that's like his thing is efficiency, and he does everything a little bit good or everything like well, not a lot of holes. But you're gonna see a lot of the problems with this team, and he's gonna have to try a little extra hard just to get them in winning spots, and he's gonna lose his effectiveness over the season because of that.
Yeah, definitely a team that their overreaction is that Shea is good and he could be great, and their underreaction is they're still terrible.
But they're still bad. That's exactly just the reality of the situation there.
Let's move on to another young team. What is your overreaction to the New Orleans Pelicans?
Oh, I wonder what my overreaction is going to be around on this one. Oh, I think I'm going to go with Zion Williamson is a lock for the Hall of Fame. He is just Charles Barkley reincarnated. We might as well make him all star this year. I don't care how many games he plays or what his stats is, because that guy is the future of the NBA.
That is an overreaction. He is good. He is good, and you have this weird vendetta against Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans. So he is good. You have to admit that the kid is good, and he should be an all-star. He's an all-star caliber player. But is he the face of the NBA going forward? I don't think so. I think that's an overreaction.
I think this year he's a fringe all star. He's a guy that should be considered, be in consideration for all star, but he's not even the best player on his team. Brandon Ingram should be an all star, and I don't know if this team is even going to be in the top 8 seeds in the West. And you're not going to put 2 all stars from a non-playoff team in the all star game. So I mean, look, I do. I like hating on the Pelicans. I didn't like Anthony Davis for the longest time. They did go and sweep the Blazers, which left a terrible taste in my mouth. I thought that Anthony Davis was overhyped before he should have been. I think Zion Williamson is overhyped before he should be. I mean, everyone is hyping this kid up to be like the face of the NBA, and that's what everyone is kind of talking about. And so that's why it is an overreaction. Not that he isn't amazing, not that he isn't this like potential generational talent, but you've got to like bring it down just a little bit right now.
Well, speaking of bringing it down, what brings him back down to earth?
Okay, so my big thing is, so like what brings it back down to earth and is that Zion is not meant to be the focal point of this team right now. What he does can't be replicated by really anybody else, but like the whole team flows through Brandon Ingram. And so you have to take that into consideration. Right now, Zion is still really young. He hasn't really played that many games. He still needs to like prove that he can be healthy, but this is still Brandon Ingram's team. And so like everyone like calm down a little bit. The Pelicans are really good. Zion is really good, but let's just pump the brakes a little bit on him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if Zion is destined to be the best player of this team, then this team is not as good as what they could be. Zion might be the best, one of the best Robin builds. Like he has the potential to be one of the best Robins in the NBA, but he still needs a Batman. He's not a guy that can get his own bucket. He needs a Batman. He's nothing wrong with being a Robin. Klay Thompson will be a Hall of Famer by being the best Robin ever, but you still need a Batman.
Yes, totally agree. Who's our next team?
All right, moving through here. We got a lot of teams to get through today, so we're not going to spend too much on each one, but we're gonna get through them. The next is the Phoenix Suns.
The Phoenix Suns. Oh, here we go. The Phoenix Suns. Are you ready?
I am ready.
You are officially back. You are officially back. Welcome back to winning basketball. The bright future Phoenix Suns. It's glad to have you back. You have gone through many years, pretty much since Steve Nash left to go to the Lakers. You have not been good. You've had a lot of weird years. You were running the double point guard system and had a little bit of success with that. Then you brought Isaiah Thomas in and ran the triple point guard system. And then all of the point guards realized there wasn't enough ball for all of them to be dribbling. So then you had to get rid of all of the point guards. And then all of the point guards turned out to be really good just for other teams. And then you drafted Devin Booker. And you're like, this is it. We got a superstar. And you were still bad. But now guess what? You are officially a very good basketball team that deserves to be in the playoffs and deserves to be talked about in the upper echelon of basketball world. Welcome back, Phoenix Suns. Which I don't even know if that's that big of an overreaction. I think that's just kind of is what it is. But I'll say the overreaction is that they're a playoff lock and that they should be considered to be one of the better teams in the West.
I was about to say, I don't see this as an overreaction. I think the Suns are back. I think the Suns are very good. I think the Suns should make the playoffs and actually could win a series or two. That being said, there's also holes on this roster.
Yes, there are definitely holes on this roster. I'd say that this starting lineup has definitely got to be one of the top 10 in the NBA. The starting lineup is great. You have a veteran superstar in Chris Paul that's still playing amazing. You have a just entering his prime superstar in Devin Booker, and you have a rising superstar in DeAndre Ayton, along with two terrific glue guy 3-and-D players in Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder. That is one of the best starting lineups you're going to get. However, where their holes are on the bench.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you look at that starting five and you're like, absolutely one of the best starting fives in the NBA. There's no holes there. They have defense, they have rebounding, they have playmaking, they have shooting, they have creation, they have everything. Then you look at the bench and you're like, if the starting five has an off night, it's a little scary.
Yeah. So here's what their bench looked like against the Pelicans tonight, which they did beat the Pelicans. But here's what their bench looked like. Cameron Payne, Cameron Johnson, Javon Carter, Dario Saric, Langston Galloway, Frank Kaminsky. And that's without any injuries except for Jalen Smith might crack the rotation.
I mean, and Cameron Payne, G League guy, was in the G League last year. And he's not like a young G League guy. Like he's like one of the older players in the G League. Javon Carter never really, he was good at West Virginia, but never really kind of did anything in the NBA. Frank Kaminsky, another guy that flashed in college, but never really did anything in the NBA. There's a lot of like veteran guys who just have never really contributed to winning basketball before on this team, on their bench unit.
Yeah. It's a whole lot of question marks, and I find to be a whole lot of youth. I mean, the only real vets they have coming off their bench is like Langston Galloway, which that's not, making my socks rise by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and that's just the thing is like this team will go as far as their starting lineup will take them. Their starting lineup is spectacular and good, and they can, stagger Chris Paul and Devin Booker with, to make up for these bench deficiencies. But I still think the overreaction isn't too bad of them being a playoff lock. I think barring an injury, they are going to make the playoffs. But them being back and being like, all right, we are here, we are back to 7 Second Suns, or we're pushing for titles. I don't know about that yet.
Yes, exactly. And I think that that's where my come down is going to be is that yes, you're a team that absolutely deserves to be in the playoffs and you have that kind of talent and that kind of starting five to where you should be in the playoffs. That being said, I would not be expecting a whole lot more than a first or second round exit, and you need to build that bench. That is, this is like, it's like one of the first steps to when you're like building a team up. Like you're going to get to the first round and you're probably going to lose, and then you start building up the bench and like the chemistry a lot more, and then you start winning more. And I could see that next season or the year after.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to this next team here. An interesting team, a team that has gone through some ups and some downs. The Los Angeles Clippers.
Yes. All right. The overreaction is going to be centered around one pandemic P, and that is when the Clippers do not have Kawhi Leonard on the floor, they are not a good basketball team. Just like they got absolutely destroyed, just dismantled, embarrassed by your favorite team, the Dallas Mavericks. Solid 50-point win by the Mavericks without Kawhi, and you have just invested 5 years and about $200 million into Paul George, who without another superstar is looking. He's been looking worse and worse in the bubble. Like we all saw it, he looked terrible in the bubble. He looked bad in the playoffs. They choked a 3-1 lead, and then they come back, and he still is continuing to struggle without having Kawhi on the floor. And so obviously Kawhi is the centerpiece to all of this, but you have invested you have a real problem right now, and your problem is your second best player, and that is not good.
No, I would agree. And it's one of those things where you look at the roster and it's like, man, this roster has so much talent and they have the superstars, they have everything. And then you look at Paul George's production and you're just like, holy cow, maybe he's not a superstar. Maybe he's not what we think they are. Maybe he is past his prime. Maybe he's got the yips. We don't know, but he is mightily struggling. And you make the good point to where it's when he has to backpack. It's when he has to, game on the line, or Kawhi's not there or stuff like that, where, because he played well against the Lakers to start the year. He's played well in other games, but he also had Kawhi taking most of the heat off of him.
He played fine tonight. They played against Minnesota and they won by like 20 points, but he only had like, what is it, like 18 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. And it's one of those things where it's like, I think that you signed a guy that's on the downturn. And this is not the Thunder's Paul George. This is not the Pacers' Paul George. This is a guy who is looking as though he's getting worse and worse every year. And you've committed yourself to a very long, very expensive contract to him. So my overreaction is that your team is going to be completely and utterly screwed because of this guy long term. This year you might be fine because you still got Kawhi. You're still a good basketball team. But long term, you may have screwed yourself with this Paul George contract.
And that's the coming back down to earth. The let's not overreact here. They still have Kawhi Leonard. They're still a good basketball team. Yes. They're still one of the top whatever teams that are in the running to win a championship this year.
Yes, absolutely. And like you could also say like the 50-point loss to the Mavs really isn't that big of a deal. Give it 2 weeks. No one's even going to remember it. And it's one of those things that if you're a great team, you just have to move on from it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's move on to our next team here, which is the Sacramento Kings, a team that has upset the Nuggets twice now.
All right. The Kings, a pleasant surprise this year, the Kings. Here is my overreaction. And my overreaction is that they are if not the deepest and more well-balanced teams in the entire NBA. These guys, so if you run down their roster and the guys that they actually have and who they are putting out rotation minutes for, they are all solid guys. They don't really have anyone that you look and they're like, oh, that guy sucks. So you start off, you got starting lineup of Fox, Hield, Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, Richaun Holmes, all solid guys. And then your bench is Corey Joseph, Tyrese Halliburton, who was one of my dark horses to win Rookie of the Year, Nemanja Bjelica, who is a great shooter and a clutch time shooter, and Hassan Whiteside, who is actually really good. Like this team doesn't really have a lot of holes. If they get an injury, like that would definitely throw off this chemistry and this depth that they've built. But they are one of the deepest and like most consistent teams that is going to be in the NBA this year because they have a lot of guys that know exactly what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but this is a team that just doesn't play any bad basketball players. Everyone in the rotation,
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, you should be playing basketball. All right, you should be
Which
playing
sucks.
basketball. Which is weird
Yeah,
because no
exactly.
one's talking about the Kings.
No, no one's talking about the Kings right now. I mean, they're 3-1. They've beaten so far. Their 3 wins are 2 against the Nuggets and 1 against the Suns. Like that's pretty good. That's a pretty good team you're beating.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a impressive resume to say the least. Let's bring it back down to earth a little bit. What is the problem here?
All right, so the issues that you still have as the Sacramento Kings is you still lack star power. De'Aaron Fox is great, and I really like De'Aaron Fox, but he's not going to be an all-star this year. Marvin Bagley, I think, is really awesome. I think that if he continues to be healthy and has a season that is kind of just a Marvin Bagley quality season, he could prove to be a most improved player kind of guy. And you're lacking star power, and you have no front office stability yet. If you're the Kings, you really haven't seen anything from your management that like shows you have faith in them. They seem to just fumble every offseason year after year and continue to lose guys. Like they just lost Harry Giles just cuz they decided not to bring him back. They lost Bogdan Bogdanovic just cuz. Now maybe they had a grand plan and this team is working out so far right now, but there's nothing the front office has done to prove to me that this is going to be a winning team, and I still don't think I have like the star players to make those runs late in the season.
Absolutely. This is not a playoff team. As much as we like their depth and
Yes.
everything, this is not a playoff team. And
Yeah,
you can have as complete of a roster as you want, but if you're not a playoff team, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. No, exactly. And so, like the Kings, I love their depth. I think they got a lot of good quality basketball players, but it's still not a playoff team.
Absolutely. Let's talk about our next team here, which is the San Antonio Spurs, coming off their first non-playoff appearance in 22 years. Absolute crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Like, first time in 22 years. That is just wild. Okay, so here is my overreaction for the San Antonio Spurs, and that is that you have your guy of the future. You have a dude who is talented on offense, talented on defense. He's a large, fast, athletic point guard, and that is DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray has already put up a triple double this year. He is running this like new Spurs fast paced offense that shoots like a bunch of threes and it's like totally different than what they were doing because now they roll out Aldridge at the center and they're rolling out DeRozan at the power forward. And then they also have Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker. You got Derek White once he comes back. Like this is like a really quick, fast, young team, and DeJounte Murray is the catalyst of everything that's going on. He is going to be a guy that you have that could be a candidate for most improved, and he could be a dark horse candidate for defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I mean, his game is just the most Spurs-like Popovich all around.
He's a guy.
Doesn't do anything bad. Can shoot threes. Can pass the ball. Plays good defense. Can get in the paint. He's a Spurs guy.
Absolutely a Spurs guy.
Yeah,
I totally agree. But I really like him. But if we're going to come back down to earth when it comes to him, he still doesn't have like the greatest averages in the world. He doesn't average 20 plus points a game. He's still not a guy that's going to be an all-star this year or maybe even next year. The Spurs are now for the first time in 20 years in development mode. And Pop is a great development coach. Actually, he's always been good with taking younger guys and bringing out the best in them. And so I have a lot of faith in DeJounte Murray and that he could continue to be the guy. Um, but the reality of the situation is he still is not to that point, and the Spurs are still not that good of a team. They're still chock full of young guys. They got an aging DeRozan and Aldridge whose games are kind of just obsolete at this point, and that's just kind of where you're sitting if you're the Spurs.
This is a team of two extremes. You have a bunch of young guys that need some time to grow, and then you have some old guys who are just literally there to I don't know why.
Yeah.
They have
And
they
so
have old guys that need to, like, if you want to ring chase, go ring chase, or what the deal is, but they got past their prime and they've got pre their prime.
yes, exactly. And just to throw out DeJounte Murray's numbers so far this year, he's averaging 15 points a game, 7 assists a game, and 7 rebounds a game on 51% from the floor and 22 from three. So to me, that shouts a guy who is not there yet, but could absolutely get there.
Yeah, absolutely. He just needs to figure it out, and it looks like he's been given the keys this year for sure.
Yes, which is I think is really important for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump over here to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
1 second, let me put my proper 12 down real quick. I'll refill the glass. Okay, so we are on the T Wolves. Ooh, okay. I kind of like this one. The overreaction for the Timberwolves is you have the best collection of young talent in the entire NBA right now, bar none. You have more quality young guys than anybody else. Other teams might have like more superstars. You might have more like Ben Simmons and Zion's and Jaws on other team. But if you go down the list, Culver is playing great this year. Anthony Edwards has been really good so far. Josh Okogie is a really quality player. Malik Beasley is a bit of a knucklehead, but he is still really good. We obviously know D'Lo is still young, and he's a baller. He's been an all-star. Cat obviously is a superstar, and he's still young. This is a team that if they can like figure out how the pieces are going to work, this is one of the best collections of young talent in the entire NBA.
Yeah, I mean, the only other team that I can think that might rival that would be the Pelicans with all their young guys, but still, like, they have a mixture of proven young guys, guys with upside, and guys who know their roles, all under the age of like 25.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Jared Vanderbilt is not bad, and Jordan McLaughlin also played really well for them low key last year. It's just like up and down, like they're full of young dudes that are going to need to figure it out. Nas Reed also is a really good guy. He's been filling in at center with Cat out. It's just like it doesn't flat with outside of Cat and D'Lo, it doesn't flash like a bunch of superstar potential. But you got a whole bunch of dudes that can fulfill really good roles all the way down your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, role players are young too at some point. And the faster
Yeah,
if you're a role player, the faster you learn the role, the better it is.
yeah, exactly. And so, if we're going to come down just a little bit, this is still a really, really young team. Like, it's not going to lead to wins. It's just not. Like, this is a team that is still going to need to develop. Hopefully, their Coach Saunders, Flip Saunders' son, can bring this together and can like actually put the pieces together, continue to develop all the guys and give them the minutes that they need to be the players that they potentially can be. But if I'm the T-Wolves fan, I'm really excited about the future, but I still don't think it's going to lead to any wins this year.
Yeah, they're playing the long game for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's do one more team here, and then we'll take a break and talk a little bit more about Proper 12. But before we get to that, let's talk about your least favorite team, which is the Los Angeles Lakers. Have had
What?
a good start to the year. Definitely a team that is going to make the playoffs, is going to make a run to the championship. What's your overreaction?
All right. Well, a couple podcasts ago, I gave you an overreaction and an underreaction to how the Lakers played in their very first game. Uh, I'm going to go the opposite direction of what I did last time, and that is the overreaction. Why are we even playing this year? Let's just let's keep all of our guys from getting injured, hang up the laces. We don't need to play any games. Let's just hand the Lakers the trophy. No one else is even close to being good enough to compete with them. They have the best depth. They have the best superstars. I don't even see why we're continuing to play the rest of the season. Let's just give them the trophy. Let's just give them the championship.
You say this after your Blazers beat them last night.
I do. I am so excited about that, by the way. That's a whole different thing. But yeah, that's the overreaction because that's kind of what the feeling or the general feeling around the NBA is like they are the kings on the mountaintop. And obviously, this is why you play the games because you got a ton of other good quality basketball teams that think they have a real chance to beat these guys. But the feeling is that this is the Lakers championship to lose right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the best constructed team. They have the best play. We've been over this a million times. They're good. Like they're just good.
They're a good basketball team. Okay, we get it.
Not much more we can say. So yes, they are the favorites. I don't know if we need to hand them the trophy yet, but they are the favorites to win it all this year. What brings them down?
Okay, so what brings them down is, look, they did lose to the Clippers, and they did just lose to the Blazers, who, prior to this game, the Blazers did not look good. Okay, I was real stressed about what the Blazers season was going to look like, and then we go and beat the Lakers. And I think that that's mainly going to be their downfall is going to be that LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to sleepwalk through the regular season. They just they're not going to care about certain games. They're just going to kind of laissez-faire, put it not really care about a whole bunch of games, and they're going to lose some games from that, and maybe that takes some of their momentum away going into the playoffs. If there's anything I know about LeBron, I'm sure he'll be fine, but you do still have to take the regular season seriously, especially in a year where every single team seems like they're getting better every single year because the talent pool is getting better every single year. So you still have to put on the shoes and go and compete against the best athletes in the world every night.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of wraps up the first half of the teams in the West. Let's take a minute here and talk some Propa 12 and get into that.
Oh, all right. So when I first tasted it, I didn't put any ice in it tonight. When I first tasted it, I almost got a little bit of menthol. I felt like I had some fresh breath that I was breathing out right after I drank it. It's a little bit sharp on the back end. I wouldn't call it spicy, or I wouldn't say that it hits really hard, because I do think it's kind of smooth, but it definitely has a bit of iciness and sharpness there at the back end of it.
I do get the menthol. I do get it kind of weirdly tastes and not necessarily it tastes but it makes you feel like you just chewed some really spicy mint gum a little bit, where you're just
a little bit,
and you breathe out. Yeah.
A little bit. It's so in contrast to other Irish whiskeys. I'm sure at some point we'll do a Jameson and a Bushmills and stuff. I drink a lot of Jameson. Jameson's usually more on the sweet end. I would not say this on the sweet end, but it still is really smooth, and I think that it would go really well with ginger ale. That's kind of the famous Irish whiskey drink is a Irish whiskey, ginger ale, and lime. And so try a little bit of that with it, and I think it'd be really good.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just the idea of drinking something that Conor McGregor likes is just kind of fun. Athletes should make more alcohol.
Athletes should make more alcohol. Oh,
right?
Come on. This one.
NBA players are always it's a big thing nowadays to be into wine. And so why LeBron hasn't made his own wine yet is upsetting to me.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I was just looking at the bottle. They have the tiger is his thing, which I don't know if you've ever seen Conor McGregor with his shirt off, as he usually fights with his shirt off. He's got a giant tiger on his chest that's right here. So I was just looking at the label and thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's pretty cool for sure.
Big fan of Proper 12 though. Go and give it a shot. I think it's good stuff, and it's not on the most expensive side of things.
No, it's a good middle tier, price wise, good bang for your buck whiskey.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it without ice right now, so I think that means it's usually a pretty smooth guy.
Absolutely. Let's get into the Jazz. The Jazz are
all right. Okay, so I think that for the Jazz, if I'm going to overreact as to what's going on so far, with Conley finally meshing with the system and shooting well, everybody's healthy. You have Bojan, you have Joe Ingles, you have Donovan Mitchell, who's balling, you have Rudy Gobert, who's playing really well so far, totally earning the $200 million contract, and Jordan Clarkson is genuinely putting up some six-man of the year stats. This very well could be the best Jazz team that we have seen Dan Quinn coach so far. And that is including teams that had Gordon Hayward and that era. Dan Quinn coached those guys as well. But in all of those eras, this is very well maybe the best chance the Jazz have to make it to a Western Conference Finals or more.
He definitely has the most complete roster and the deepest roster he's ever had.
Yeah, no, totally. And all right, so let's look up what the old Jazz's record was. They didn't play tonight. they beat the Thunder only by one last night. The Thunder are kind of pesky. All right, so the Jazz are 2-1 right now with wins over the Thunder and the Trailblazers. And dude, when they play the Blazers, they looked real good. I didn't get to watch a whole bunch of them last night when they played against the Thunder, but I think that this is just a team that is going to be super energized, super defensively focused. You have good quality vets in Joe Ingles and in Mike Conley. You have young rising superstar in Donovan Mitchell. You have a guy who's a defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. Clarkson, I think, is a absolutely huge add onto this team. And you're still got like Derek Favors coming off the bench too. This is just a good team. This is a really deep quality, superstar led team.
They are a good team. They are a playoff team. They are a team that I don't think anyone wants to play in the first round, but they aren't a team that scares me in terms of championship.
So this is my overreaction pod. And you know what? I don't see why the Jazz can't make a run. Just as well as the Nuggets made a run in the playoffs last year, just as well as the Blazers made a run 2 years ago to make it to the conference finals. Maybe that is what their cap is make it to the conference finals. But I don't see why not. If they catch fire, Donovan Mitchell is putting up 50-point games in the playoffs like he was last year's playoffs in the bubble. And if Rudy Gobert is actually just dominating the paint over big centers like Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol, it's in theory say the Lakers are who they're playing in the conference finals. This is a team that is definitely going to be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a team that is dangerous. Again, to bring them back down to earth, I don't think they're title contenders, but I do think that this is a fun roster. It's a good roster. It's a roster that Jazz fans could be excited about.
Yes. So that's what my thing would be, is that with a lack of offseason movement and with the chemistry issues they already had last year, if everything is peachy, then terrific. But if it's not, you have the same ceiling, which is to say potential Western Conference Finals, but probably not much more beyond that.
Yeah, that seems fair. Let's talk the next team, which is your Trailblazers. I'm very interested to see what this overreaction is.
All right. The overreaction is that we are, bar none, a top 3 team in the West. No doubt about it. The Blazers will be a top 3 or one of the top 3 teams in the West, and will end up being a top 3 seed in the West.
Yeah, I mean,
I had to go positive.
On paper, this team should be a top 3 team in the West. On paper, this team is really, really good. On the basketball court so far this year, it's been a tale of 2 halves and 2 stories. You've been really good. You beat the Lakers, for God's sake, and you've been really bad.
In perfect honesty, when we were talking about doing this idea as a podcast with the whole overreaction thing, it was before we played the Lakers. And the only 2 games that we had really played was against the Jazz, where we got absolutely just dismantled. Like, it looked horrible. Didn't lose by 50, but it still wasn't very good. And then we went and we played against the Rockets, which were just depleted. Like, it's pretty much James Harden, PJ Tucker, Christian Wood, and a bunch of dudes I'd never heard of. And we had to go to overtime just to beat them by 1. And my overreaction, I was considering at the time to be like, I don't know. I don't think the Blazers are going to make the playoffs. I was really, really nervous in those first 2 games. That being said, a win against the Lakers, like actually playing as a cohesive unit and like it looking kind of like you think it should look with the players that you have on paper. Now we're only 3 games in, and we're 2-1 right now with wins over the Lakers and the Rockets. We're a top 3 seed. Go Blazers!
What a swing! What a difference a game makes, especially in the early season. People are ready to sell the farm, and people are ready to go all in and bet the house on the championship after each game.
Absolutely. So I've swung back and forth on what I was going to do with the Blazers, but I got to stay positive. I chose them to be my number 2 team coming out of the West preseason. We're only 3 games in, so it's too early for me to back out of that yet. If we are 15 or 20 games down the line, we're 500, then sure, I'll admit maybe we're not top 3 team. But as of right now, I don't see why not.
All right, and what brings you back down to earth, Mitch?
What brings me back down to earth is exactly what I was talking about in those first 2 games. I was real nervous, and there was no cohesion. The ball totally was just stopped, and it was all ISO ball. There was no flow to what we were doing. Everyone seemed lost on defense, and it felt like we were just going to get gobsmacked by every single good team in the entire NBA. And so we have to have like, you got to kind of temper the expectations as Blazer fans get really, really excited just with any little thing that happens. Gary Trent is not going to put up 28 points a game. And it still is to be seen as to how Melo actually is going to fit on the second unit because he didn't play against the Lakers. The first two games he did play, he was a bit of a ball stopper as Melo does, and it made us a lot worse. So there's my monologue for the Blazers. We should temper expectations, but overreaction season, we're a top 3 seed.
All right, and we'll swing from one side to the other because my next team on my list is the Dallas Mavericks. Let's overreact to that.
All right. Here's an overreaction for you. I think that the Mavericks are 50 points better than the Los Angeles Clippers without Kristaps Porzingis on their team.
That's not
Take the
overreaction. That's a fact because it happened.
No. Okay, so the overreaction for the Mavericks would be that Luka is going to be the MVP this year, and there's even if they end up as the 8 seed, Luka will still be the MVP this year. That being said, the Mavericks are going to be a top 4 seed. I think that like it's not like an overreaction to say Luka's gonna be MVP, but you rarely see a guy win MVP without being a top 2 or 3 seed, and I think that there's actually a really good chance of that happening this year.
Luka is pretty good at the basketball.
He's good at the basketball, and he's good at the stats. He's good at having big stats, which the nerds love.
Yeah, we do love letting Luka shoot the ball a million times. But what brings us back down to earth because we are flying really high after a 51-point win.
Yes. What brings you back down to earth is you still don't have your second best player. You are still kind of figuring out the pieces to the team, and so I doubt that the Mavericks are going to be a top 4 seed. My bet is that they're going to be somewhere like 4, 5, 6 is right around where I kind of think that they're going to be. And you pretty much never see a guy win MVP and be a 4, 5, 6 seed. It really just like it never happens that way. That being said, it could like that's what the overreaction is let's say that's where you guys end up. I think Luka still has a very good chance of winning the MVP. He's got all the narratives and all the love and all the stats to back it up.
Absolutely, and that would be really fun. Love having MVPs on.
I've never had that before.
From one potential future MVP in Luka to a previous MVP, let's go from the Mavericks to the Warriors. Let's talk Steph Curry and the Warriors.
Steph Curry and the Warriors. Ooh, it's been tough for you guys so far this year. It has not looked very pretty. You did get a win tonight, which is nice. That being said, who is their win against, actually? I want to see that. It's against the Pistons. That's right. You won against the Pistons. Congratulations. The Warriors, if I'm going to overreact to you, it is you are a bad basketball team. Everyone thought you're going to be good. You got a great coach. You got a great superstar. It seems like the other guys on your team are good quality basketball players, but this is a bad team. I find it very hard to believe that they're going to make the playoffs at all. Like even make like the play-in game, I think is a bit of a stretch for them right now. Steph Curry is to be determined. Is he going to actually be a guy that can backpack a team? Kelly Oubre, is he ever going to make a 3-pointer? I mean, same with Andrew Wiggins. You are inefficient. You are not good at defense. You do not have nearly enough playmaking outside of Steph to really like make Steph great. Like he's amazing off ball, which is one of the great things about Steph, but he's going to have to be on ball just about 99% of the time of this year. And you're bad at rebounding. And like right now, your second best player on the court has been a rookie. That is not like a recipe for success.
No, absolutely not. And it calls Steph's legacy into question. And we can get more into this on another podcast because this is the whole topic in and of itself. But Steph has always had the best team in the NBA, if not one of the best teams in the NBA around him. And now he doesn't. He's got, average at best players around him. And so it's a big year for Steph and his legacy in terms of like submitting himself as like he's one of the greatest players of all time. He already is. But is he more of just a guy who was on a good team and benefited from that? Or is he a guy that can, all right, get on my back, let's get there?
Yeah, exactly. And I will say that Steph pre-Steve Kerr and pre-great Warriors had backpacked 3 teams to the playoffs. And one of those teams included, it was Steph and a third All NBA team David Lee, and another one of those teams was Steph, and a third All NBA team Clay. So 2 of those 3 years, he had guys that were on the All NBA teams. So it's not like he's never really run with like a whole bunch of like scrubs, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how great a great individual shooter can actually take you in the loaded West. Right now, I'd be really nervous about it.
So I guess it's not back down to earth. What brings them back up to earth? Because they were down. So
yeah, okay. What's bringing them back up to earth is you're 2-2. Your 2 losses came against the top 2 teams in the East, the Nets and the Bucks. Now your 2 wins came against a Bulls, which required a Damian Lee game winner to win, and the Pistons. But your losses have been against teams who are really good, and I don't think the Warriors are anticipating on being a championship team this year. So like when you lose to the Nets and the Bucks, it's really not that big of a deal, even if it's by large margins. And you do need to go and beat the Bulls and the Pistons and those kind of teams, keep your record afloat. So I would don't get too down on yourselves if you're the Warriors. Kelly Oubre will start making threes. He's not the greatest 3-point shooter in the world, but certainly he can shoot over 30%. Same with Wiggins. He's not the greatest shooter in the world, but certainly he can shoot over 30%. Both those guys should be a lot more effective than what they have, and we haven't even seen Draymond Green on the floor yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Draymond coming back will help immensely. Let's go on to the Rockets, who I don't know if there's an overreaction enough for this team.
Here's my overreaction. If you're walking down the street and the dumpster's on fire, it looks like a dumpster fire, and it smells like a dumpster fire, by golly, it's a dumpster fire. The Rockets are a mess, dude. They are a straight mess. They can't even get their players on the court because everyone's out in clubs and birthday parties getting COVID and giving it to everyone else on the Tate, and you're required to play like Jayshawn Tate 28 minutes a game. Harden is out there pretty much just, I don't know, giving himself more advertisement for other teams to try to trade for him at this point.
Sucking down Twinkies,
it's just
too.
It's a mess. He's fat, dude. He's like a bowling ball out there right now.
But yes, it is a mess. That team has no leadership. There is no team chemistry. There is just not a lot going right. And yet they still, I think, have a couple of wins.
No, they're 0-2.
Never mind.
They're 0-2. They couldn't even play in their first game against the Thunder because they didn't have enough players to qualify to play a game, which the number, if you didn't know, because of COVID protocols, if you don't have 8 players that have not been connected to COVID tracing and or injured, then you can't play the game. So first game against the Thunder, postponed. Second game against the Blazers, which we were very vulnerable at the time, could have gotten a win there, didn't. And then lost to the Nuggets. The Nuggets sure haven't looked terrific yet either. I'm just just really, really nervous if I am the Houston Rockets right now.
And I'm willing to guess what your underreaction, everything's okay, is. You have a really good trade piece. His name is James Harden.
Yeah, and it's going to bring you back someone good. Somewhere, at some point, you're going to get someone good. And we have not even seen John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins get on the floor yet, or Eric Gordon.
That's a good point.
We don't know what a John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Gordon, Daniel House, PJ Tucker, Christian Wood team and James Harden team looks like on the floor. That could still be a damn good basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, just on paper, that's a playoff team lock.
Mm-hmm. So here's some crazy stats for you. Is James Harden is averaging 39 points a game with 12.5 assists, and Christian Wood is averaging 27 points a game. By the way, another side note, after watching the Blazers-Rockets game, Christian Wood is really good. I think the Pistons royally messed up by not bringing him back and giving their money to other guys like Mason Plumlee and Jeremy Grant.
Definitely a good point there. Christian Wood has played well this year. A team that also has a young star, but they will be without him for a little while, the Memphis Grizzlies. Where's your overreaction there?
Yes. All right. Memphis Grizzlies. The overreaction is, unfortunately, the season for you guys ended before it started. And it's really unfortunate because I think that the Grizzlies are going to be a very, very good team for a long time in the future. I would be fairly stunned not to see a team centered around Ja and Jaren Jackson make a Western Conference Finals at some point in their tenure together. But this year, Jaren Jackson Jr. won't be back until what they're saying to be mid to late February or mid to late January. Very well can turn into February. And now Ja Morant just got a grade 2 sprain on his ankle, and he's not going to be back at the very best like 2 to 3 weeks. So in a shortened, condensed season that's already 72 games, it's really unfortunate. But your guys' season just ended before it even started because you're behind. You're behind the eight ball. I'm never gonna give a team like total out of the race before like we get to the end near the end of the season. Anyone can get hot, but you're gonna be way, way, way behind the eight ball by the time your stars are back.
Yeah, I mean, this team it wasn't a playoff team, but it was a fringe playoff team, a team that could make a run, a team that was in the playoff conversation last year, but Ja out 3 to 5 weeks. Jaren Jackson Jr. missing the first month or half of the season. Like, it's too many games, not enough time. For me, I think they're out of the playoffs.
Yes, I would agree. I think that they're out of the playoffs. Um, but my come back to earth with I think the overreaction is like, oh, they're done. There's no chance that they can make the playoffs. But you're still really good. Like John Jaren Jackson will be back together at some point in this season, and you're still going to have a significant number of basketball games to where if you're catching on fire and you're playing well, this team can beat any team. They can go out there and beat any Western Conference or Eastern Conference team on any given night. So they will absolutely still have a chance, and they're still going to be fighting and clawing to get into that play-in game. Is what my guess is near the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that you hope you play them early because you don't want to play them when games are on the line in a playoff push.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully this is a good time when your stars are out to where some other guys can step up. You can get Dylan Brooks to step a little bit, Grayson Allen step up a little bit, Brandon Clark, Desmond Bain, the new first round pick out of TCU. Shout out Horned Frogs. But
Shameless
hopefully
plug,
with your star
shameless
guys
plug.
out, you can yeah, exactly. Get a little bit more development from your other guys before your stars come back.
Yeah, this will be a good retooling. Let your young guys get some run before everyone kind of meshes together year. We got one more team left, and it is the Denver
Okay,
Nuggets.
let's do it. Oh, Nuggies. Oh, Nuggies. All right. Let me pull this up. I want to make sure that I'm correct in what I'm saying. Yes, so they're 1-3. Their one win came against the aforementioned Houston Rockets. It was a dumpster fire. I think we covered that. But if I am the Nuggets, I would just panic with multiple exclamation marks. Like, you are absolutely in a state of panic. The Nuggets, as of right now, are 25th in defensive rating, and there's not a lot of signs that it's going to get better, defensively speaking. Like, Jokic is still doing Jokic things. Jamal Murray has started to pick up a little bit, but scored like 9 points in the season opener. Um, and Millsap has certainly taken a step down, and Michael Porter Jr. is a bad defender. And it's looking like this team is focused way more on offense and bringing Porter Jr. in, and it's not working right now.
Yeah, I mean, this team has so much young talent on the offensive end, but if you look up and down the roster, there's no stoppers. There's no one out there that you can throw at, a playmaker and be like, "Hey, go lock him up." I mean, that you could argue Gary Harris, but that was Gary Harris 3 years ago.
Yeah, Gary Harris has been on a weird decline early in his career to where he's not that good of a defender anymore. I mean, he's fine. I don't think he's ever going to be a bad defender. It's kind of what his calling card always was. But you can't like use him as the linchpin to your entire defense. It's showing right now. It looks horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to watch. It's a shame because Jokic is putting up crazy numbers, and this team will go as far as Jamal Murray goes because Jokic is going to do what Jokic does, and it's whether or not Jamal Murray can be that number two guy, the guy that they're paying him to do. But this is all goes out the window if they don't play defense.
So the defense is going to be an issue. I'm sure that they're still going to be in the playoffs. Like they're still a really good team, but much cause for concern.
Yeah, it's scary early, but you're comeback thing, the sky isn't falling, is that the season's young. You've got time to figure it out. There's plenty of games left, and your team is good.
Yes, you still have a good team, and there's been some talks put Monte Morris in the starting lineup instead of Gary Harris, which I think would be really interesting. So there's a lot to be seen with the Nuggets.
Yep. Well, that wraps up all of our teams here. You've heard some hot takes, you've heard some not so hot takes, and you've heard some takes in the middle.
Right where you want it, like the Three Bears.
Yep, absolutely. And we were joined by Proper 12 Irish whiskey today, which was really fun to drink, really fun to talk these takes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed them. Let us know what your favorite take was. Any of them that stood out to you, or any of them that you think are horribly wrong, and Mitch is an idiot. Mitch loves hearing that too.
I do. I love hearing that. Hey, quick shameless plug. Team Morale t-shirts are here.
Oh yeah.
I'm wearing one if you're watching it.
Yeah, we got some merch now. So that'll be up on our social media and stuff soon. We're working on that right now. We've got a lot of things in the works. Exciting time here over at Team Morale headquarters.
Very exciting time. Basketball is back in full swing. Could not be more happy.
Yep, we've got a good team around us, and we're ready to take it to the next level. So stay tuned. A lot more in the works.
Yep. Cheers, man.
Cheers, brother.